And action.
And action. Hello, everybody, and welcome. I am so super mega excited today to welcome someone that I'm going to say I knew her before she was famous, almost. So we've known each other for a bit, and she has just exploded onto the scene as someone who is presenting so much power and light and beauty around
Hmm.
masculine and feminine relationships, connection, and doing it in a way that goes deeper than even the depths that most of us have been in so far in trying to move beyond our families of origin and that experience of life. So anyway, I could introduce her forever and say all these amazing things about what she's done, of which I only know a little bit. But I want you to listen to her as much as possible. So welcome from the bottom of my heart, Gillian
Hmm.
Pothier.
Hmm.
Pothier, sorry.
Pothier. That's okay. All good. Ryan, thank you. That is like a lot for me to receive and take in, and it feels really good. And so I just really appreciate your words and your wrangling of me to join you here today. So I just feel really grateful and honored.
Hmm. And
Mhm.
yeah, there is a feminine energy. It is my pleasure. And two things that about what you said.
Mhm.
Um, Even already, you're always making me dive in and think and feel. And the first is the feminine energy that you bring in this wrangling. And I want to talk more about that based on your writing.
Mhm.
And the second one I forgot, so I won't go.
So let's just dive in there
So we'll
together.
just dive in.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
yeah. Do you want to? Yeah, I want to know when people think about you, or what do you want them to think about? What are you passionate about? What is your purpose, your raison d'etre?
Raison d'être. Um, so in the context of what we're talking about, I will say that I feel very called to sort of like somewhere between disrupt and or access these deeper points of remembrance for the collective. And what I mean by the collective is just the people that are willing and or are in enough vibrational resonance that they're going to be even tertiarily like in my field or reading my work, so that people who have enough openness, my work can be very confronting. I know this about my work. It can be highly activating, energetically, highly psychoactivating. And I think that I really appreciate and honor like the people that are kind of willing to tussle a little bit with some of this darker feminine kind of eros. And what I mean by eros, the god of love, it's like, but I also use that outside of its meaning of like we get the word erotic, we can hear the etymological root there, but I mean it in terms of like the fullness of our life force. So when we are in willing and in these places of deeper access points to the remembrance of who we are in our fullness, outside of all the narrative and social constructs of man and woman, it's like there's something there that becomes possible for us to really be expressed and then alive outside of what has been socially quarantined as like taboo, or what has socially been socially quarantined as like inappropriate, air quotes. So when we can really stand more wholly, and I mean that in all meanings of the word, of our fullness, it's like then there's an aliveness, then there's like an erotic, again meaning like the fullness of life. And so I think that that's the river beneath the river that I stand in.
And I love how you have this ballet-esque wordsmithery around this all. A lot
Thank
of
you.
us can look at it and say something's wrong with the way men and women relate, or we want things different. But you have this beautiful poetic sense. I'm not even going to say poetic almost. It really is poetic sense of how you express what's happening and how you feel about it. Why are you so passionate about men and women, or masculine feminine relations, and what's happening?
So that, I think that that has like deeper stratas of significance. One is that, so I, how do I say this? So there's two main thrusts that kind of double helix together, I think, that create my lens. One is that I was trained, beautifully trained for several years as a dominatrix, years ago in Manhattan. And so there's a way that I became imprinted, immediately with a deep understanding of the the more chthonic aspects of power and the more kind of multidimensional, energetic qualities that exist, that alchemical interface that exists. Like it's alive between you and I right now. Like we are in an alchemical container that is constellated in very real, specific, dynamic ways between the masculine and the feminine. For me, that is most overtly, like its highest, for me, its highest form of expression exists between a man and a woman. But these are energetics. So it's certainly the gender anatomical embodiment and reality is like nearly irrelevant. I'm talking about the co-creational Shiva Shakti kind of, drive and alchemical activations that occur between these two energetics. So I was very fascinated. I was like, I was less interested in kind of the protocols and the activities and the like play and of the domination, scene. I was fascinated and excelled at kind of like the psychodrama, like scene construction that evolved around working. Yeah, right. And I think you probably, this is probably quite resonant for you as well, where I started to understand what I now call kind of like the masculine psyche. I approached this through kind of a darkly enchanted, world. So I'll complete that component by saying that was a really significant, really meaningful initiation into just having languaging and just having a lens around what occurs, the level of psychoactivation that occurs between a man and a woman inside of, in kink, we call that a scene. Jung calls that an alchemical crucible. It's the same thing in many ways. So then, many years later, I've always known and been fascinated. Like I always knew that I would study, Jung and that I would study archetypal psychology. So I went and became trained as a Jungian psychotherapist in Santa Barbara, and I did years of clinical training and clinical immersion. Chose and elected nearly at the 11th hour after, as I said, a many year sequence of devotion to that lineage, that actually working in this kind of antiquated paradigm of patient or of pathologizing or diagnosing the human psyche wasn't something that like I wanted the epigenetic imprint of in further. Like it felt, I got to a point where it was almost contaminating to begin to look through a lens that was one of diagnoses and one of pathology. So, and that's not the Jungian aspect of that. That's the nature of psychology, clinical psychology in the Western world. So then it became a matter of me after kind of sitting in this death of like, oh my gosh, you know, after being devoted to that for so many years, it's been through my writing that I've been able to, and not just my writing about my lived experiences, that I've been able to kind of dance and braid and weave these two significant, not just experiences, but like spheres of influence through my lived experience. And I didn't even realize like the exquisite elegance of the way that those two spheres of influence, inform one another and kind of dance together. So for me, I am so blessed. I feel like I have been given in hindsight, like have been given these insights and these ways of looking at and being in the world, and constant refinement. Like, there's a radical demand for evolutionary unfoldment when I'm inside of these lineages and these worlds. But that, for me, it's like there's such, like, I feel very grateful to God that these were the realms that I found myself in, because of how beautifully they, it's not that they intersect, but like the interface where those two lenses or lineages meet is perfect for me.
Thank you. I love all the places you just went. In fact, there's a way in which I felt connected to and resonant with you before I knew anything about you. And the more that you talk, the more I see, oh, because of this, this, and this.
Right.
And I want to come back to many of those things. But the first thing that you spoke to, and something I've always wanted to know more about, and you just gave me the opportunity to ask you, so here I go, and feel free to reply however you want, is in the experience of dominatrix, which I guess you could say has something to do with sex work or erotic work in some sense.
Sure. For me, with all respect to sex work, it wasn't sex work for me, but I totally get the way that they intermingle.
Okay. So, but there's erotic energy involved in some sense.
For sure.
Okay. So I'm just going to say something, and I want you to like hit me with how you feel about it. Every woman should have the experience of being a dominatrix or being dominant. What do you think about that statement?
Sure.
Why?
And every woman should have the experience of being, tied up and
submissive,
possibly suspended in an extraordinary shibari rig.
Why? What can these experiences give us as people to have these experiences?
They give us ourselves.
Yeah. And how did it happen to you? How did you end up there? How did you, was that something you were always fascinated by, or?
Because you have to embody qualities of beingness that are only demanded of you in extreme conditions.
Oh, my heart leaps when I hear you say that. Yeah.
And so it's creating scenes or situations, and this is not exclusive to kink in any way, shape, or form. I'm in an extreme condition with you right now. These, like, being interviewed on Facebook and doing lives, and it's like, this is like high sensation gameplay for me. It's different, of course, than a scene where I'm in a position of either domination or submission with a man or a woman, whomever it may be. But the experience of who we become alchemically when we have to run extraordinary voltages of sensation through our body, there's a lot of rewiring that occurs in, as I said, in those sort of, and even extreme, I have to air quote, because that's so relevant, or that's so conditional and subjective upon our own lived experience. I like those containers, and I get blown out by them sometimes. No, really, it's like there's a lot of the capacity building that has to be very carefully attuned to.
Say blown up by them. What does that mean?
Blown out. Well, I don't mean inside of kink, but I just mean in like terms of lived experience. Like, I have no mastery. How do I say this? It's like I'm made new over and over again. And again, I'm not speaking about kink. I'm talking about when we put ourselves inside of, inside of conditions that are very heightened for us. It's like there's a way that, yes, we can bring the capacity that we've been cultivating and the refinement that we've been experiencing in our lives. And there's a way where we have to surrender over and over again because we are being made new over and over again.
And how do you see this in, how do you titrate it to have those experiences where you're remade, or as opposed to being blown out? Blown out sounds like a painful thing or a bad thing to
I
me.
think maybe blown out meaning like where there's significant integration that's required. Blown out, let's find a, thank you for that reflection and that kind of adjustment, Ryan. Like, let's find better languaging for that.
Because it sounds scary to me when you said that.
I just meant like highly, highly activated.
Right. And that's not a bad thing necessarily.
No, it's how we grow.
We like lifting. Yeah, go ahead.
As long as we're not in like a trauma loop or a trauma vortex, that's a very different experience. That's not what I'm referring to right now. But that's another way that people can, and again, I'm just talking about life, containers in life.
Right. So there's a way in which, oh, this goes so deep, so far, so fast. Thank you so much.
Yeah, let's hear what you got.
There's a way in which you work out, you lift weights, and you actually tear and destroy your muscles, and then they rebuild more strongly, right? And it sounds like you're talking about some sort of similar experience through life and or created experience with one another.
Exactly.
So my problem, okay, I'm going to get honest here. My problem is I'm like you. I like these big, intensive, transformational, high voltage, possibly blowing out experiences. And I've invited several of them in the past year or so, which I've told you about a little bit.
Right.
How do you, what's your experience, or how do you invite other people to play at that level, or find people to play with you there? Or has that been a challenge? Or
I just mean at the level of energetics now. Like, I'm just talking about.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's interesting with me, Ryan, because like my nature is very introverted and I'm actually kind of straight up shy. And like, I can share with an experience yesterday, like, talking to 10 people at once, like in like a teaching or coaching circle. It's like there's ways where I am shocked over and over again by where I lose myself or where I get flooded energetically. So there's that part of me that like kind of almost goes into like a freeze state when I'm met with a lot of energy. So that's a very real part of me. And at the level of my own, I guess, resonance, who I roll with in life, like they're really big players. Like, and it's amazing for me because like I am humbled and schooled on the regular. Like I think that there's some sort of resonance. And I have asked the question, not in like a self-deprecating way to myself, but like, what part of me is an energetic match for this like high stakes players over and over again in all aspects of my life? Because I feel in some ways I feel very different than them. Like they're playing like big overt games. Like I'm more moonlit. That's kind of my nature, is like I'm not this solar in the world penetrating force, perhaps a little bit through writing, but I'm definitely kind of happiest. Like my preference is to kind of be like crawling around in the moonlight. Like that's just what I like. And so I'm at the level of preference, my world is peppered with kind of giants and energetic titans. And I'm incredibly grateful for that and humbled. Like, I don't know how else to say that. Like I am energetically penetrated a lot by my own shadow or my own fear or my own like old paradigm senses of self. So there's a way where I just feel like more and more I have to walk through the world shedding these narratives of who I am, like who I was yesterday, this morning, and this moment to moment recalibration, and this moment to moment kind of holy penetration of this moment now. So I don't think I actually like, I think I kind of bat signal, or kind of have this dog whistle, kind of energetic dog whistle, where I'm invited into intense crucibles of relationship and friendship and entrepreneurship, for sure. And I don't know if that answers your question directly, but
I appreciate the insights that there's something about you that invites that, obviously, that bat
yeah.
signal that you're talking about. And yeah, do you ever have people kind of run screaming from the intensity?
No, because it's usually me.
Okay.
No, honestly, I'm like I'm like, okay, I'm really full. It's sort of, yeah.
Because I'm feeling the other way around. I'm feeling like pulling people in kind of too intensely, or penetrating too hard, or I don't know how to describe that. But yeah, so I feel like sometimes I don't know how to titrate that. So I don't know if you have some wisdom for me there.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan, you're such a exquisite attuner, like your capacity to attune. And I think these things are always about the resonance. And it's like you have this way, and I know this about you, and I really appreciate this about you, but it's like you have this appetite. You do, for more and deeper and wider and fatter connection spaces. And so and I think it's like it's kind of a lot to receive, or a lot to like feel activated. But I love, like, you have a huge capacity. You have this like huge pipeline for intimacy and connection, and like that's really exquisite.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and yeah, I definitely, that's one of the things that draws me to both you and your work, is the depth of connection it invites.
Mm-hmm.
And for people who don't know about it, maybe I can go through a few of them, a few of the ideas, and we can discuss it a little bit. So we can, if that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
I would
Mm-hmm.
just love to shine a spotlight. There's so many things to talk about here, but I just love to shine a spotlight on just a couple of the things that you've said that have really resonated with a lot of people and very powerfully with me. And the first one is, of course, through a lot of the justice that's coming, and Me Too, there's been a lot of look at yourself, understand yourself. And there's been some judgment, there's been some shame around that. And I read this beautiful piece of yours when it came out, and I've read it again recently, The Shaming of the Masculine, Weaponized Feminine Pain. You want to talk about what was happening for you in the creation of that?
Yeah, I think that was probably one of the first pieces that I gave myself permission to release into the world. And it was a really big experience for me. I joke about that, like, I hit post and immediately like put on my metaphorical helmet and kind of climbed under the bed. It's scary because I wasn't sure. And, it's that way still, but I have a bigger capacity to hold the fullness of the feedback from the collective now. So, yeah, that piece came through like fast and hard, and I posted it without proofreading it. And I did that intentionally because I know myself, and I have a very strong, what Jung calls animus. I have a very strong judgmental, masculine, driving force for perfection. That's like an archaic aspect of me, kind of a coping methodology. So I know the experience of when I'm writing / channeling a piece in this kind of thonic underworld that I'm inside of. And I knew if I had lifted that piece up into my thinking function in order to like curate and edit and proofread, I totally would have chickened out. So that was a way where I just hit post with imperfections, just to like kind of land it in the collective. And then once I dropped it in, was able to go back. So I dropped it in imperfect. And even that initiation was, painful and wretched and glorious for me. So just dropped it in its imperfection, waited, I don't know, half an hour as I kind of, paced around the house and outside in the yard, and then went back in once I knew, like, okay, I can't delete this. Like, there's comments or, it's like been made real in a way. And then I was able to bring it up into the analytic kind of executive functioning, the neocortex, and review that piece and kind of fluff it up so it wasn't like have blatant errors and spelling and typo things. And so that was a really profound initiation, first of all, in me giving myself the opportunity to say yes to what clearly felt like I would have been in deep kind of death drive or denial if I had not been willing to listen to that voice and trust that capacity in me to see, like the part of me that is a seer, the part of me that saw how that was what was happening in the collective, and to give voice to it, however imperfectly. So deep initiations in that piece for me. That piece was also really confronting for me to write and to share, because it was occurring like the women in that piece were kind of quasi colleagues or women that I knew and had respected. And so that was extra challenging for me to kind of choose to believe in my own truth rather than policing that voice to say, like, no, that's not okay to do or say, to kind of go beyond the part of me that would have kept me small otherwise. So deep personal initiations in that. And then I think because of the energy encoded in it, this is so much. Sometimes I feel like the words, while there's a refinement to the words, it's like, it's also the energy behind it. And so that piece had a very significant thrust of kind of feminine golden cock, is sort of the way I feel about that piece, and to allow myself to bring it into the collective. And then since then, it's like been very received and very activating. And there's been a lot of discourse and tussling with that piece, less so now because it's, I think, like 15 months old or so. But yeah, big experience, and so grateful that, first of all, that I gave myself that chance, and then second of all, that kind of spoke into some of the distortion in a way that has value.
And I just want to quote a couple things from that piece so that people understand what you're talking about. You talked about eye rolling and snarky comments about something some man did that then brought up what many of these women thought and felt about probably masculinity in general. And then you said, as I looked over the names of the women who were posting on that thread, my heart sank. I knew some of these women personally and professionally and have long admired their voices and their work in the world.
Yeah, that's what I just spoke to. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, what gives you the courage to even, I mean, maybe you can't answer that question, but what gives one the courage to call out our peers or the people we respect? And can we do that? Is that allowed?
Because it's less and less. I mean, this is something I'm learning in extremely intimate ways in my own reality right now. It's like, it's not personal. It's not. It's like, these are distortions that we've all been encoded with. These are imprints of wound templates that are ancestral and epigenetic. So it's like, in order for there to be any recalibration of the energetics that are so distorted in our culture, it's like there have to be people that are willing to kind of lift the veils or offer another channel of insight. And it's like, and that's what I was sharing. Like, if I just sat on that, I would have internalized. It's like, that's like a slow death. It's, when women know and see. In fact, my friend Elsa just wrote a glorious piece about this called The Death Drive of the Feminine. So when women and when feminine essence beings, when we know and we see, and we don't speak that or share that, we are denying our own potency. We're actually not trusting God, on a deep level. We're not trusting the archetypal energetic of the divine masculine within and without. And we internalize and introject that which we don't give ourselves like the holy permission to do or to say in the world.
Thank you. Tell me about your spirituality.
That's a really beautiful question. So that's something that, because I write, in some ways, a lot of my writing is as a champion of the divine masculine. And that's been tricky because there's so much overt support and celebration, and beautifully and rightly so, and thank the gods of and for the feminine. And this is a quote by my friend and teacher in many ways, Erica Jade, and she says that we cannot birth the fullness of our Shakti, like we cannot birth the fullness of our feminine unless and until we exalt the masculine. And so for me, being, I'd say, like a code carrier, and we can talk about this a little more deeply, of what I call heroes gamos, or divine union, or sex of the gods. And that's an ancient alchemical term to describe a ritual. And then Jung, hundreds, if not thousands of years later, used this to describe the state of divine union once constellated within. So the divine union of the masculine and feminine aspects of the human psyche, a mystical marriage, so like a template of mystical marriage within, and what that feels and looks like, and what that creates as like multidimensional opportunity when we can, as women, as feminine essence beings, heal. And healing for me is a state of remembrance. So heal or enter into a state of remembrance about how it is that we hold in our systems the energetic of the masculine meaning the animus, the masculine aspect of my feminine being, her masculine aspect at the level of the psyche, King, God, or King, the Holy Father, God. And so that entire like worldview, the entire Weltanschauung of how I looked at and understood the energetic of the masculine has cracked me open, has cracked my heart open into such extraordinary, clunky, awkward, resurrecting devotion to the energetic of the Holy Father, not with the intention so that, if I exalt the masculine, if I enter into a state of sacred devotion to the Holy Father and to God and to Christ consciousness, then I'll get to birth the fullness of my feminine principle. No, but in, again, like a relationship or an archetype, it's not archetypal, an energetic relationship of surrender. And this is like, I'm learning still how to language this. So it wasn't like I was doing something in order to get. I realized that my path, like my moonlit footpath and my journey, was one of cultivating this state of divine union within, and of allowing myself to submit, not just the transcendental state of surrender, submit to the Holy Father, submit to God, submit to receiving the cosmic insemination of my own of my own intuition, of my own capacity to create.
So I love all of this. And if I can ground this in a little bit for me,
Please.
and maybe for other people, when you talk about this, the submission and surrender, this divinity, the way you use the word God, you spoke about something internal. Do you feel that there's something external about that as well? That there's God somewhere out there? Is that part of the spirituality, or how do you experience God?
I mean, as within, so without.
Mm-hmm.
So I am not one of these people that's like, I am God. I am absolutely a fractal emanation of God.
Okay.
And so I guess that's kind of a distinction there. And it's not that I'm not God either.
Love it.
But for me, because my system likes surrender, my system likes submission, that's a place like I can kind of be in my deepest devotion, like in the deepest devotion of my innermost, like the innermost chamber of my feminine heart allows me to access, not just to access, but to be in sacred, holy, on my knees devotion to God.
For me, this is the elephant in the room around most conversations in sacred sexuality, tantra, all of this. The spirituality aspect is spoken to in a way and quite strongly ignored in another way. And you're actually pulling it in and talking to it in a way that resonates with me. Because I experience the same thing you do. Like there's the submission, there's the insemination, there's the receiving. And sometimes I'm going to say it in terms of I want, or I have to do something I don't want, is almost is that phrase that, when I think of submission, it's kind of against my will, or your will, not mine, be done.
Right.
So,
right.
Say more about that. Or how does that work with you?
That is like, thy will be done. Like how do I say this? It's like, until I am filled with, and I'm having increasing lived experiences of having to learn to hold that much light penetration. And without that, without letting myself submit and be opened through humbling experiences, like this is no elegant, exalted journey. It's like, this is the path, and I am inside of this. So I don't mean to speak about this like I have this dialed. This is like I am deep in having these experiences and these insights, and having my heart like really kind of ripped, torn open. But without that light penetration of the Holy Father, for me, it's like I get to live this kind of two-dimensional, that's all I'd get, like, sure, we can live this life and we can have our carnality and we can have our pleasure and we can have love and marriage and, children, we can have these exquisite things. But in order to be in the full exalted expression of our divine beingness, it requires opening and to be penetrated in ways that are both exquisite and in ways where it's, the ravishing is so tender, and so painful sometimes. And there's so much grief there at times too. But it's like, but only then can I know myself as divine. And then only then can I go beyond my own human Gillian desires and preferences in order to like live my life as this dynamic offering. I say this and, I wipe out in this on the regular. So I want to share or like be clear that this isn't like I am deep inside of this resurrection and this like these state of remembrances, and I'm having exquisite openings and callings and understandings and revelation, and wiping out on the regular. So just to name my own vulnerability, I guess, in this journey too.
I appreciate that you do that, and every spiritual path, any sermon anyone ever gives, it's going to be from a place of imperfection about the perfection and the totality. And that's all we can say is there's this ideal that I'm striving towards, and oh my God, what I've had so far is amazing. And I wish everyone listening to this can have the experience that you're having of going to these places, because I know what you're talking about. I think I've had similar.
I think, I know that to be true for you.
Thank you. So I want people to be able to experience that. And yet I find a lot of the experiences around, and I don't mean to be critical, but kind of the love and light brigade, so to speak, or those who are preaching kind of the one-sided, oh, you're going to manifest everything and use the law of attraction and have whatever you want, but this other side of it has to be included.
Yeah. Like we have to be willing to die.
We have to be willing to die. And we both talked about this, and maybe we should dive into this now. I mean, it's pretty intimate and deep, but feeling like messengers of death, or I have one article where the line that says, I kill people, I kill women, so have to be willing to die. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? More than what you said. You've said a lot, obviously, but
again, this is something that I want to acknowledge Erica Jade for illuminating to me so potently. In order to be resurrected, and this is not her languaging, this is her illumination, however, and I'm going to say this because I'm paraphrasing something less eloquently than she spoke to it, but it's like, in order to die, in order to be resurrected, we have to die fully. Like, you don't get to die 89% and be resurrected, or 94% and then be resurrected. And so you have to be willing to die fully, totally, completely, in order for the resurrection, metaphorical, allegorical, energetic, symbolic, archetypal, whatever we're going to throw down, to actually be made real. And only then is it that you are made new. All the other times, it's like we are kind of you used a word, what was like titering? What was the
Like
word?
titrating or
Titrating.
yeah.
Yeah, we're like titrating our own death.
I'm happy to die a little bit. I'm happy to surrender kind of.
And that's right. And that's been totally my experience. Like I've been happy to die a little bit. I've been happy to surrender a little bit. And it's like, you know what? It like it doesn't work. It actually not only prolongs the dying, but prolongs the suffering and the pain and the golden like what becomes possible for you in your life. Because then God gets to like then we become, this is actually a better way of saying it, like then we become kind of the opus.
Then we become what?
The opus.
The opus. The creation.
Like,
the
or
music,
our life,
the magic,
exactly. The great work.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so it sounds like to me, correct me if I'm wrong, that there's this view of life and what it should be and what we should be doing and what we want or what we feel. But there's this other expanded vision. And I want to hear more about how to access that, how to get there. And that as we surrender into that, we fully get into the chrysalis so that we fully become the butterfly instead of only partially getting in.
Right. So which is like, and then the butterfly never actually gets to be in its radiance.
Right.
Or even
exist, right? Is never born. And it thinks, hey, I'm fine. I'm fine as a caterpillar.
Yeah.
You know, I can get around. I can, it's fine. I don't need anything else.
Right. I'm good. I'm good.
Oh, I've heard a number of people tell me recently, I've got the people, I've got the things for when I want to deal with that, when I want to handle that, when I want to move there, it'll happen or whatever. And I feel so strongly about inviting people. Okay, but you should try this thing. Steve Harvey has this video about jumping, and he's like a parachute. You know what I'm talking about?
I love that one. That's my friend Erica, the one I keep referring to. She shared because she teaches that, and she shared this exact Steve Harvey video, and I was like, oh my God, I love that so much. It's gorgeous, and I love him. Like he's just that jumping, exactly. It's like where you have to be all in. You have to be willing to die. You have to be willing to die. And so like for me, like I have been so like working that edge of like hedging the bet, like, butterfly wing poking out. And it's like, it like trying all the things, trying all the like old mechanisms and coping things. And it's like, it doesn't work until you are willing to lay yourself on the altar and like give yourself in all in fullness. And so for me, it's like, and I'm still like, there's moments of that. There are moments of such exquisite, not just moments, but like periods of time. And then it's like, you can feel the contraction and like a return to the density and return to trying to kind of control through the thinking mind. And it's like, that's an old world. It's an old world. It's not just like their coping mechanisms or an old way of being. It's like the world is being cleaved. And those densities or those, it's like, that's not how we create a new world that like works for everyone. It's not just antiquated. It's like it's dying.
There's such a deification of I and me and what I feel and what I want in our culture. We capitalize the I, and we think that's us, and instead it's just a concept of us, concept of me, my preferences, how I was raised, what I was taught to be, feel, think, believe. And it seems like you're speaking to something completely different.
Yeah, may I share a recent like IRL story?
I'd love it.
Okay. So I went to a conference for women last week, and I was one of the speakers in this conference for women. And that's a big edge for me because I have a very strong preference. Like I like to not speak in front of people. Like it's just scary, and I get flooded and all. this is an edge for me. And so the game was, it's all for women and it's about feminine leadership. And the game was to like not not know what we were going to talk about. So like there's no PowerPoint or keynote, there's no notes, there's no agenda. It's to allow the emergent feminine process of just like allowing what wants to come through. So I have been on stage with a microphone in my hand twice before that experience. Once was in graduate school at a podium with notes, delivering like a speech kind of thing. So like to get up in front of a conference of women with a microphone, and I was like, woo, this is my third time ever doing this.
Wow.
And there was a lot of fear, a lot of sensation in my body. And I just found myself a little bit in my thinking function, and talking, like kind of dropping into what it was that wanted to be made real in those moments. And I think it was probably going okay. I haven't, that's the word on the street. And then I could feel myself entering into this kind of transcendent state. I could feel myself willing to surrender. I could feel myself trusting, like literally the felt sensation in my body was like how loved I am by God as I'm on this stage. So I ask someone, and this is where I start to like not really remember. I asked someone to help move a bunch of candles, like a tray of candles to the front of the room. And then I told all the women in the conference, I said, okay, feminine leaders, get down on your knees. And they all got down on their knees. And I got down on my knees, and they dimmed the lights, and I put my hands together and I closed my eyes, and I could feel my body slightly starting to move. And I like delivered unto this group of very strong, potentiated, beautiful, feminine, women that are resonant with something called feminine leadership. This prayer, and it's one not even of forgiveness. It's one of cleansing, of letting ourselves be baptized and be made new and be cleansed of these narratives that we hold in our system about what men and the masculine are, based on all the social distortion and construction and all the ways that we have allowed ourselves to be separated through, yes, I understand this, a potentially quote unquote harmful footprint caused by, men, males, the masculine energetic, quote unquote, the patriarchy, the whole kit and caboodle. And the way that if we are truly going to create a new world, that we have to let ourselves be cleansed so that we can create energetically the third thing, this third principle, through that remembrance and through that love and through that kind of alchemical co-creative force. And I had like looking back on that, I would have really preferred that one of my first experiences at that level of channeled experience did not happen publicly on the floor in front of a conference of women. And in those moments, I was able to trust God enough and so deeply that I could get the fuck out of the way to let something like that come through. When I kind of returned to my body and peeked into, I was like, oh my gosh, because all the ladies are on their knees and the AV and sound dudes, and they're crying, and women are having these huge experiences because, well, first of all, there's a massive energetic when we're witnessing the feminine in her willingness to be witnessed, in her devotion to God, in her submission to God. And because it is my belief that it's like, and I said this before, like the innermost chamber of the feminine heart so desperately longs for this experience. So I can hold that part of myself, and then I can hold the part of myself that pulls very back, that pulls far back from that remembrance or that state of love and love for God and trust and perfect trust. So, and this isn't a matter of a week. So this is, and it's all like, there's nothing wrong. It's like, this is this process. This is this alchemical process. It is a little bit like energetic whiplash at moments, but it's like, this is what's real.
Yay.
Well, and I'm not saying that to say, oh, sorry, I have to move my leg. Yeah. So these are what I'm referring to. And I say, like, there's some really big experiences.
Wow. So can I share something?
Yeah. You
briefly?
jump in. I want to listen to you.
Well, it's about you. So anyway, and you're not, and this isn't exclusive to you, but what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing and what I think the next level of the transformation and the healing is around men and women is it's going to be a non-egoic space and state that we have to move from. We can learn better communication skills. We can learn how to have long orgasms. We can learn how to whip properly. But if we leave out the stuff that you're talking about, we're going to have this experience as opposed to the experience that you're describing.
Totally.
And so providing found us, and I don't know how else to look at it or say it, but a spiritual foundation for that just seems so essential.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it flows through you, and you're speaking to it, and you're speaking it, and you are it. Yeah, Gillian's religion, Gillian's spiritual.
No, nothing. I am so like, yes, I know the codes I carry, and my remembrance is like, this is pipsqueak, Ryan, still, like in the grand scheme of yeah. I mean, and I appreciate that. But
well, here's what I said, and here's what I say, and you can fight me on it or whatever. But
I can fight
you. I said, I'm seeing the people. I think January 8th this year. I said I'm seeing the people who will be the leaders of the new world, and right now they feel like sometimes 3-year-old Dalai Lamas or little baby kings with crowns, but they're growing up quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I've definitely felt that royalty, that leadership, that power from you the whole time. One just senses it. And I'm so happy. I guess I'm happy and grateful to hear you see you writing about it, see you living into it more and more, because this vibration is the one that resonates so deeply with me, that heals me, that makes me feel seen and loved and taken care of by the divine feminine and the divine masculine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That I just am so grateful to you for stepping into that and being willing to hold that. And yeah, it's going to keep going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's going to keep going and become something that neither of us can probably comprehend at the moment. But
Exactly.
but I've always felt that with you. I've always felt something incredibly powerful and special.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Like, I received that, your words, with so much deep appreciation for you and your seeing and your heart. Like, this is, like, this is this requires like a deep purification of all our hearts, men and women. And I did want to clarify one point, that I am not for a moment saying that there's like work, like this requires, in order to create this third thing, this third principle, this requires deep healing and presence of both the masculine and the feminine on our planet. So I work with women. For the most part now. I used to work more with men. And so when I refer to my lived experience about working with women to kind of be cleansed of the distortion around the masculine, there's also deep, potent, direct confrontational work that the men and the masculine must do in this as well. So I feel like I just want to, it's obvious, and I say that with great love, but I also don't want to be remiss in like perpetuating a way that this could have been misunderstood, that like this is on women to do. No, this is on all of us who can see, and all of us who are like of pure enough heart to be willing to kind of answer the call that's being kind of, it's like almost like an echo, you know, like, and for those who have eyes to see and for those who have ears to hear.
Do you have a Christian background, I guess? Not really?
No, in fact, I'm
you speak out of it.
Scheduling. I'm learning. And because I do feel like there's an activation of specifically like a Christian lineage, like a consciousness of Christ and the Holy Father. And that feels very alive to me. And I'm creating it, like I've chosen to be baptized. And so that's something that's new and slowly revealing itself to me. So I just wanted to kind of back this up a little bit and just say, like, to avoid misunderstanding, this is all hands on deck.
Yes. Thank you. Such a power came through to me when you said that about being baptized. And baptism is signaling a commitment. I mean, I've had a lot of experience in organized religion.
Yeah, I know this about you. No, very lovingly I say that.
Right, yeah, for sometimes very pleasant, sometimes not so much. But that's a symbol of death. That's a symbol of burial and rebirth, isn't it? That's the commitment. And that's the kind of commitment I am allowing myself to die to my old person, to my old sinful nature or natural man, or however you want to call it. And I'm going to be reborn as you know, as a follower of Christ, as a believer, as or how do you understand it?
No, very much as you spoke. I think you spoke exactly. And that's why this is like I had the deep revelation. Like I know the moment and I know exactly where I was when the words came out of my mouth. And I was like, you know, because this isn't exactly, this is a lot to hold. And so when those words came forward and I heard that, like the clarion call so specifically, there's some resistance and there's some like kind of, you know, my moves I do, my little like thrashing and like maybe I can negotiate and get out of it. And like, oh, I try all the things. And so, but I know what that touched in me. And so it's like, that is my commitment, and for it to unfold in like perfect divine order and timing. So like, I know the commitment, and then it's just a matter of like letting it unfold in its own perfection.
There isn't anyone that I have been talking to at this level, at this depth, that has the understanding of the transformation that needs to happen and that is speaking to it, who has not also said exactly what you're, not exactly, but something very similar to what you're saying in terms of There's a Christ consciousness principle.
Totally.
There's a spirituality that is, from the Gospels, or, I'm not someone who will take the Bible as 100% literal truth. But I definitely have a relationship with Jesus and a connection there. And I understand the message there. And it's as opposed to so many beautiful things in Buddhism or Hinduism or wherever. But Christianity for me and the story of Jesus is about personal relationship. It's about personal connection. It's about forgiveness. It's about, can we get along? Can we help each other? Can we, and this is exactly what you're talking to. Boiling everything that you've ever written down, we're looking at the golden rule.
Yeah. That's a beautiful.
Sorry.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Wait, what did you say? Sorry?
I did.
Why sorry?
Well, I don't want to negate or make light of anything that you've said, but really, if we're fighting against men and we're demonizing men and we're having issues with men, then okay, can we treat them how we want to be treated, or and how do we get back to each other? How do we become at one-ment is the key and the core of Christianity. At one-ment, atonement, unification. Right now we're splintered. We're just disconnected. And we don't know how to find each other. We don't know how to touch each other. We don't know how to talk to each other. And if we leave out these principles, this spirituality, then I've had the experience of just continuing the crashes and the explosions. And so I'm so excited to invite and to do this journey with you and with others into the spirituality of masculine and feminine, this hieros gamos, this divine marriage, but not just ritual, not just on a body level, but actually on a spiritual commitment level from something deeper,
Yeah, that's the threshold.
Yes, that's the threshold. Here we are. And several people are coming to me and speaking like this. Someone told me recently, a very powerful woman, she says, I feel like Jesus. I feel like healing like Jesus, like just walking through the streets and healing people. And that's my calling. And I'm like, yeah, this is coming. This is powerful. And it's connected to the masculine, feminine, and it's the entire everything.
Right. It's the entire, what does that mean? It's the entire everything.
Like, we can't just fix one part of the world.
Oh, perfect. I totally understand that.
Right. So it's education, it's medicine, it's healing, it's, it's all the systems, it's finances, it's ecology, it's everything. And relationships and sexuality and community and child raising and, and these principles flow through everything. Once we start moving in this new way and getting out of our heads and our ego, and starting to get back to, I don't know, I think aboriginal is the word that's coming to my mind, but this original way of being, and just
Edenic.
Say it again. What was it?
Edenic.
I've never heard that word before, but yeah, just our natural way, primal perhaps.
And refined, though, like alchemically purified.
Right. Like it's both. It's
both.
It's a paradox. It's yeah. Then we're going to actually see.
And this is something that we have to also. Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
This is something we have to. No, you say. This is something we have to.
Isn't that what you were saying? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like I think that so much of quote unquote like the crisis or the distortion that we see is that we're so out, like we're not holding union within. And the way that we have had the masculine, for whatever factual reality and whatever narrative is being perpetuated around that, they've been mythologized and villainized and criminalized, like as an energetic. I don't even mean as men. So we have a crisis of women whose the way that they carry or embody the energetic of the masculine in their system is so corrupted that they will never, if they stay inside of that mechanism and that distortion, they won't be able to hold union within. We can't be surrendered. We truly actually can't even trust the universe. Like we cannot be safe until we, and this is the work actually of women right now who choose to deepen into this sort of edgy hinterland of consciousness and of awakening. But it's like, because it's in service to us and to God, when we can, again, heal, air quote, but like enter into a state of remembrance that allows the energetic of the masculine and how we hold that in our system to be exalted and to be respected and to be loved. It's not just in service to men. So when I say I am in, and this has taken me a long time to be able to say, like, I am in sacred devotion to the masculine. And this is the work I do with women too. But when I am in, it's not just ever men. It's the entire energetic channel, so that I can be at the fullest potentiation of my own expression, and to teach women, or to, let me say this better, to hold women in that remembrance. And so that's part of the commitment here, is like that it's not just men when we hold a distorted version of the masculine energetic. It's consciousness. It's like it's divine consciousness. So that, and I feel like I'm perhaps not saying that in its like fullness, but it's like, that's why this for me is so life affirming and so vitally required right now, is so that women can be, so we can hold union within and support men, or illuminate to men that they can hold union. Because when we're all holding union, when we can hold a crystalline sense of union within, then we are creating, without these different energetic states of union, both through relationship and through through all modes of beingness. But until we are cleansed, or we cleanse that channel of how we hold the energetic of the masculine in our systems, we actually can only perpetuate a distorted narrative.
So what I'm hearing you say, gratefully, is similar to if people ask me what my purpose is. Often I say to heal the chasm between the masculine and the feminine, inside and outside.
That's beautiful. Oh, inside. That's beautiful, right? Yeah. Same.
And so what I'm hearing is you're an example for the feminine learning to exalt and work within and cooperate with and find connection to the masculine, or the divine masculine. And so, ladies, go to her. Where you're over here, all right, go over there. To experience that and work with her and read and follow. And my question that I have for you is, how can we, as the masculine, as men, support you and serve you in this grand and glorious endeavor?
I mean, what you invited me today, Ryan, was such, and really like in such exquisite service. And so I would say, like, this is what that looks like. Like, I am amazed. Like, I always sort of tease and wink that the threads on my posts, it's like, that's how we're creating the new world. We have men and women in all different places, feminine essence being, masculine essence beings. Like, we are throwing it down in a way that, and I don't know if you read any of the comment threads, but it's like,
Sure.
there's so much love, and I feel so deeply, exquisitely held in my journey and supported by the masculine increasingly as I open my own channel to trust and to have faith, imperfectly. And so I feel very, very supported and loved in my journey by the masculine. And I really appreciate, even though I'm learning these conversations, it's like I so appreciate the stand that you take for me, Ryan, like for years. Like you keep coming around and like holding me as I'm thrash around a little bit in this journey. So I don't know that there's like a specific thing other than, to reach out and to share your experiences and to be in conversation together.
Thank you. So definitely read your stuff.
Read my stuff.
Comment on it to spread it, spread the message, and reach out and interview you. So these are all great things that we can do.
Thank you for consolidating that into dude language.
Forgive me,
give them data. Please give them data. That's not my
yeah, just to translate into the male mind.
Totally.
So and that's one thing. That's the whole dominatrix. That's the whole, kneel down, kiss my feet, like that simplicity of language and instruction, imagine a dominatrix saying, find the innermost worshipfulness within you and express that in the appropriate way. No, that was wrong, right. We men love the clarity of the direct instructions.
I'm so grateful for that voice, because that was the voice. Because it's like, again, because of my introversion and shyness, like that was the voice that was like, okay, ladies, okay, feminine leaders, like get on your knees. And I was like, oh, I'm so grateful to have that access inside of me where there's like a capacity to command respectfully.
Beautiful. And it has to happen. There's domination without being domineering. There's a time for such. That's the thing that's being called forth in me right now, to the point that it's absolutely terrifying, is the point to speak the absolute, total, crystal clear truth unto the destruction of whoever I'm in front of thinks they are. And
in love.
Yes. I mean, it's always in love. Otherwise it wouldn't be happening. That's
perfect. What you just said. Thank you for that adjustment and correction and refinement.
And that was the part that was hard for me, because I'm thinking, this doesn't look like love. The way I'm saying it, so I should be nice or whatever. No, this is love.
Yeah, I'm learning that in spades right now. Nice isn't love.
Yes,
like
exactly.
Speaking from your heart and delivering unto whatever it may be, like that's the highest expression of love.
And you can never say the wrong thing to the right person. Was a phrase. In other words, we can refine it, we can figure out how to as we go on, but the problem is, if we're all erring on the side of niceness, then we're never actually expressing what needs to be expressed.
Yeah, it's so true. Deep wound of the feminine, in which I have lived inside that template.
And not
just of the feminine, men too, particularly now, I think it's even extra confusing, but I think, like, historically, that's like a feminine wound template for sure.
Well, I'm just so overjoyed at so many things that are happening between us right now. And, that traditional snag template that I think I've dived into, to the sensitive new age guys. And, that niceness there that actually isn't perhaps totally authentic.
Over spiritualized, like the men of light.
Yeah, is something to look at. And the thing that's really scaring me and tickling me at the same time is, you talk about this invitation and this pull that I feel I keep coming around, as you say, right? So you're always in my mind, and I'm always, you're always present. You're one of those people that is present with me, and I know that all these big things are coming. And like, I saw what you're talking about last weekend. That's something I've seen for years, inside you and with you, and perhaps you have as well. So, and it's just the beginning, but yeah, there is a strong invitation from me to you to step into these spaces and to access and to dance and struggle and wrestle and see if we can find our collaborative third thing.
The third principle. Sure.
Third principle. Thank you.
No, third thing. Yeah, perfect too. Wait, I just have to adjust. Okay.
So that's always there. And yeah, at the same time, asking you how I can serve and support more strongly. Thank you for what you've said so far. And I want to continue down that path. And yes, in the alchemical dance of, that reminds me of the other article that I want to talk about, because that brings it up perfectly. And that was called The Dark Art of Feminine Submission. And I just want to go into that, into either I'll tell the story or there we go. There's the quote. Beautiful story. Everyone has to read The Dark Art of Feminine Submission. I'm going to post links to everything that Gillian has written after the interview, and we're going to post this in a few things. It'll come on YouTube, it'll be on my website, etc., so people will be able to find it without scrolling down my wall. I like, here's one quote. I'm just going to say the quote, we'll see what happens from there. I like the feeling of placing my will in someone else's hands, especially the hands of a man. More to say, yes or no?
What?
Is there anything you want to say about that, or just should we let that land?
No, I like that. And I like that with a man. And I love that, that's with God.
Say more about that a little bit.
It's like, because my will is not my own.
And that's probably the key misunderstanding we have.
So I like the metaphorical gameplay of that. Not always, in very specific containers with very specific men. And then in other ways, outside of the psychosexual, like this is my greatest teaching. This is my greatest, like this is the one that works me the most deeply. This is my gauntlet. My will keeps me in a gilded cage of my own preference.
Thank you. A couple more quotes.
Please.
They have created this for me because I energetically hired them to do so. In asking for my consent, a man is responding, obeying actually, to the game I have already begun. Consent is never the first move. Consent is instinctual response.
Exactly.
Consent begins energetically before it is verbalized. Okay, his showing up at this level of creational intentionality, again, read the story, was in consensual response to my erotic advances, not of body or of gesture or of sex, but of psyche. That level. Okay. I was giving myself permission to take the thing that all of us in psyche and limbic system desire, quest for experience with the archetypal beloved, so we can feel ourselves.
Yeah. Oh, this was called Taking It, the dark art of feminine submission.
Exactly, taking it. Yeah.
This is like the kind of paradoxical play of, like, it looks like, oh, I'm going to be the one kind of taking it, as we say. But in fact, I'm taking precisely the experience that I want so that I can feel myself in my fullness.
Oh, and I love this part. We've already hired them. He or she is showing up to play the role that we selected and hired them to play to fulfill our wanting, whether conscious or not.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're at the Matrix. You know, you're here to see why you decided this, right?
Mm-hmm. But everyone, this is my friend Rob Kendall, like brilliant men's coach and author Rob Kendall. And I'm not sure if I think that this is like his lineage of principle, but he's like, oh, we energetically hire each other all the time to either we hire people to keep ourselves small. We hire, it's like there's definitely people in my life that I hire to keep me small, because if I get too big or if my light becomes too powerful, that relationship's going to be in jeopardy. I also hire people to call me into the biggest game I know how to play. So we all relationships on some level, sure, there's karmic implications, but there's also energetic, like, you and I hire each other, Ryan.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. And I love that dance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only just begun.
Yeah. And we all hire each other. Like, right. We have to really understand this, where it may not be conscious and it may not even be something that we quote unquote desire, but we're an energetic match for X, Y, and Z experience for whatever reason that may or may not be revealed in those moments.
Right. And the last sentence that you wrote after the credit is, it remains for me an edge to take full responsibility as both villain and victim for my role in the games I choose to play in my life.
Yeah.
So much wisdom, so much beauty, so much depth, so much truth.
So there's a very significant moment when we can say to someone, thank you for the service of your villainy.
Do you know the Sinead O'Connor song, Thank You? And there's a part, thank you for loving me, thank you. And then there's thank you for tearing me apart. Thank you for breaking my heart, right?
Thank you for the service of your villainy.
And I love the word villainy or villain. I told you a little bit about poker. And whenever you're discussing a poker hand, you talk about the hero, who is you, and the villain. And it's much different than saying the evil one or the bad guy. But the villain is the person who's playing the opposition. They're playing the bad guy right now. They're playing that weight for you to stretch against so you get stronger or, work against. So
the villain actually starts the gameplay.
Yes. You want to say more about that?
Well, the villain does something in order to be the villain.
Right. Without the villain, you can't play the game.
Without the villain, you can't play the game. Well, depending.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, I'm agreeing with you.
And what if we look at relationships as exactly that opportunity? Because when I think we're looking at them often as the opportunity to have no villain and just peace and calm and, I don't know, something specific. And actually, that our beloved or our friends or whoever can drop into that role from time to time, and that can be of service.
And for many of us, it's like, I hope we have the opportunity. I hope we all have the opportunity to play the role of the villain.
Well, I'm accepting that more and more with more and more excitement and gratitude. And in that role of death, in that role of or messenger of death, in the role of the wrecking ball to the old ways,
dark angel.
The dark angel, accepting that, which took me a long time to be comfy with. Well, I'm still not comfortable with it, but to accept and really represent, and it carries a special experience and magic that is unique.
Totally.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ryan.
Do you have final parting thoughts or words that you'd like to share?
I just wanted to thank you. It feels great to me to be in this container with you. It feels great. Like, I think I said in the very beginning before, when we were in our 10-second countdown, where I was like, yeah, like these are uncomfortable. I'm still learning. And this is sort of beyond preference for me to be talking and interviewed and on camera and all the things. And I was like, Ryan, I really trust you, like, to hold me in this container. And I didn't mean that as like a requirement. It was just a sharing of my heart. And that feels really good to me, to be in this container with you and to trust you just naturally and organically, based on knowing one another, that you've earned this trust to feel like wherever we're going to go, I'm okay, because you're at the helm and holding this container for me and providing this really beautiful multidimensional leadership that's in service to me and in my full expression. So I just really wanted to thank you, so much. Like, that's a beautiful feeling and something I'm so grateful for.
Mm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for speaking that.
Mm-hmm.
It's been traditionally challenging for me to allow in nice things people say.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes far beyond that. What you're saying is really something that I need to take time to let in. So thank you. I will when we're done. Excellent. Here.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
And thank you for trusting me.
Yeah, my pleasure. It feels great, as I shared.
Regardless of my ability or my lack of ability to actually keep you safe in this space or create something that is pleasurable or pleasant or challenging or whatever for you.
Totally.
Because yes, I think we as men want to represent what you just said.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
For the women in our lives, for women, period. And we don't always. Mm-hmm. And I think, let me say this. Obviously, I haven't always done that successfully for you. There's been times where I haven't simply held space no matter what. Mm-hmm. And so this is something that I'm growing into and practicing. And I
energetically hired you to do that.
And I appreciate your forgiveness.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
To say, okay, and I'm going to get back on the dance floor with Ryan.
Yeah.
Totally. Even though he may have stepped on my toes at some point.
Mm-hmm. Right. But it's like, and to recognize the grace in all of that.
Which
I need like a good smashing every now and then. So and you're one of the people, you're one of the people that can like deliver a good smashing. That's not easy to do.
Right. It's that whole energetic death and angel of.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Thank you for receiving that. Thank you for being willing to die completely multiple times over and over and being an example of that for me. And I will happily smash you. Wait, maybe I said that.
Deliver unto me
it unto you an energetic smashing. with any frequency you desire. So when people want to get shaken up, actually 2 people told me recently, then they come to me and
seriously.
Yeah, people
seriously,
Ryan,
brilliant. Somewhere between like psychic surgery and a good smashing.
Yeah. They're like, you showed up in my life, and then 3 days later, this happened, and this person left, and this person came in, and this job ended, and this, so
totally.
So I tend to be a transitioner, even without doing anything. It just happens. And thank you for recognizing that and not being angry at me when these things
of course, no. It's like all is fair in love and war.
Every comment opens up another 2-hour conversation, which we have much too rarely, but I really enjoyed this time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ryan.
Beautiful and brilliant as always, and deep and insightful, and most important, humble and spiritual through it all, which is going to be the secret sauce and the key to us getting the world you're going to create and be a big part of creating the world that I need to live in. So thank you.
And vice versa.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
All right.
Have a beautiful day.
All right.
Bye.
You too. Take care.